Good morning, greetings, welcome. My name is Gabriel. This is another video in a book publishing series. I've been adjusting my workflow and experimenting a little bit to figure out how I want to share this, make these videos and how to kind of do this in a way. This is all about how to self-publish books on Amazon, KDP. I use mostly free software such as Scribus, Google Docs, Blender. And this is an over-the-shoulder, watch me work, the real-world kind of day-to-day work of designing, or the real-world day-to-day work of just publishing books on Amazon KDP. This has been a hobby of mine for several years, and now I'm kind of transitioning into doing it more seriously as a business. So let's jump into the video. Today we are working on an ebook. So in some of my prior videos I've been doing here, let me show you. I've been working on two books. Both of them are pretty far along, but I'm really trying to get them wrapped up this week or early next week. So one book I've been working on is The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois. The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois. This is a classic black science fiction post-apocalyptic dystopian short story written in 1920. So this is considered a public domain work. I've been filling this out. This is almost ready to go. I finished the paperback, a high quality draft of the paperback. So what I need to do now is I need to order the paperback, order what's called like an advanced author copy, so I can do final proofreading, make sure everything lines up and looks good. And let me see. So what I'm going to do now is I want to share the preview with you so you can kind of see where I'm at with this. And then what I do generally is I focus on the paperback first, and then once the paperback is almost ready to go, that's when I go over to the ebook, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I do that. But here, so this is the cover of The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois. So you can see the front here and the back here with some information. So a lot of little fine-tuning and refining to get it to this point. And some of the other videos that I've been making, you might have seen some snippets, but this is where we're at now. So then here's what the inside looks like. Again, all the formatting, well, so the typing and the kind of the writing is done in Google Docs. Then I go to Scribus, where I do all the formatting to, this is a 5x8 paperback. That's the size of paperbacks I've enjoyed publishing most right now. I am looking at 6x9 as an alternative option, and we can have conversations about the positives and negatives of that. But for right now, I'm sticking with 5x8 because my goal at this stage right now, when I'm trying to focus more and kind of really, increase and boost this work that I've been doing, is I want to stick with what I know how to do, what works. I like these 5x8s. Also, you see this illustration here. These illustrations I've done, I use Blender grease pencil. And some of the videos in this series show some of the over-the-shoulder work of me working in Blender grease pencil. So again, this looks good. I've kind of gone through it. It's 89 pages. There's another Blender grease pencil image that I created. So again, now that I have made it this far, the next step in the process is I order an advanced author copy of the book to do final review and reading. But there's two issues that I'm facing. One is I live somewhat of a nomadic lifestyle, so it can be hard to arrange where I need to mail the book in order to get it. That can be a little bit of logistical planning and coordination, and I'm about to hit the road and move to another location, so I can't order the paperback to proofread now. So what I'm going to do is pivot. I'm shifting to the ebook. This is a program called Kindle Create. This is free. This is made by Amazon. You get it through Amazon KDP. So this is the one you want to use for making Kindle ebooks, obviously, because it's made by them and it updates and formats. And there is a fair amount of work that you need to do to change it from that paperback I was just showing you to the Kindle version. So it's the same content, but you got to reformat and tweak it a little bit. That's why, another reason why there's always refinements. It's a continual process of constant loops of refinement and improvement among the different mediums. But when you're getting into book publishing, what you want to do, especially book publishing when you're talking to distribute the book in paperback, in ebooks, in audiobook, all of these kinds of things, all the different formats. What you want to do is you want to get first what I call like the master copy. You want that outside of all of these other softwares I'm talking about, probably Google Docs. That's what I use. You can do Microsoft Word if you have that, or any text program, but I do that in Google Docs, and you want to stay there as long as possible, because the thing you want to avoid is if you have work that's maybe rough in Google Docs and then you jump into Scribus and start formatting it, then you have your work in two different places, and if you make a change in one place, you got to also make the change in another place, and that can get a little bit tricky, and you can overly complex. And now that we add this new element of the ebook, then it's even more complex, and it increases the potential for errors and discrepancies among the mediums. Now, having said all of that, I confess that that's kind of the overarching philosophy, but the real world practice is that generally I try to get the work as high quality and up to a certain level, particularly the main book part. Now, I'm a little bit less strict when it comes to the addition of what we call the front matter and the back matter, where we're talking about copyright pages and introductions and things like that, or images. Some of that work I'll like to lay out in Scribus first, and then kind of get a feel for how it looks, and then I'll go and work on those other elements, the introduction and the images. However, that kind of back and forth flow and evolution of slowly sculpting it into a finished form, that's what I do in the paperback. Once I have the paperback, I pretty much want to lock the content and then go over into the ebook. So that's where I am now. Now, there's still little tweaks and refinement. Like, you'll see the cover page here is a little different than the interior title page of the paperback. So that's why I want to make sure my content is locked. This copyright page, again, I want to make sure that this information is the same as the information in the paperback. This quote, this was in the paperback. This is a quote from an original review of the book that The Comet was published in. The Comet is the short story by W.E.B. Du Bois. Again, that's what we're publishing here today. That's what I'm working on. So this quote: "No one has ever described with greater power and beauty what it is like to be a black man in a white world. No one has ever made a nobler and more powerful appeal for justice to black folk." Now, that's from The Monitor, a newspaper, Omaha, Nebraska, March 4th, 1920. So in another video, when I'm working on my next book, I can show you how I find things like that. There's the historical congressional newspaper archives, where you can search and find original reviews or information about the author or the book when it was published. And when you add that to the book, that's what Amazon calls annotation. So what you're doing is you're adding value, you're gathering different material together and making a new work. So even though this book, The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois, is a short story that's been written and published before, this version that I'm publishing, the 2025 edition by Gabriel, has original new collection and arrangement of materials in a new way, and that's where a lot of creativity can come in. So the editor's note, again, this is the same editor's note as in the paperback. I don't want to have any changes here. Again, this is another example. This is some commentary that I put into some of my work. I like to do a lot of work in the public domain. I like to try and find classic books that maybe have been forgotten or aren't well known today. And what one incredible source of amazing, brilliant works is the Harlem Renaissance, and a lot of work by black authors from the period between 1910 to 1920, or excuse me, 1910 to 1930. I found a lot of incredible works. Zora Neale Hurston, other works that go farther back as well, but this book published in 1920. Now, there's certain language of that time or in that book, or because of what the subject matter is, that I'm not going to publish. There's one word I will not ever publish in my books. I won't be a part of it, and I have an explanation here that talks about it. I'll read this to you so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. This is the third or fourth book that I've done this kind of editing, and that's my job as an editor. That's my role. I have the freedom to make this change. In making this change, I'm also putting the reader on notice that it's happened, so I'm being transparent about it. And I think it's an interesting way as a book publisher, particularly if you're interested in publishing public domain works in the public domain. There's often problematic things, in this work of the past that just is not okay in our current time. So the role of an editor can be to address those, try and preserve the original spirit of the thought of the concept being expressed, while still applying edits or revisions. So this is something that says, one word has been stricken. Editor's note on revisions to the original text. In the history of the language of the United States of America, there is one word that is so evil, hurtful, and racist that it has been stricken from this book. The word appeared 4 times in the following pages before it was revised, and each instance was edited in a way that attempts to capture the context, tone, and spirit of the author's original statement. House of Lundy's business is storytelling. Many of the stories we publish are works from the past that may have been forgotten, yet have timeless value. The decision to strike one foul word from the original text is an exercise of the freedom of speech and not an act of censorship. Readers may freely seek out the original source material, and artists may freely prepare their own editions of this work. The publication of The Comet, with notice of these revisions made to the original work, is completely different from a government-mandated restriction on speech. Book banning that seeks to whitewash the presentation of American history in the classroom and the workplace, while downplaying the evils of slavery and racism, violates the principles which make our country free. In publishing the 2025 edition of The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois, we hope children and adults can discover this Afro-futuristic science fiction classic by one of the greatest authors in American history. So you see, I've worked on that language quite a bit, and I think, again, I'm not trying to interrupt or interfere with connecting W.E.B. Du Bois to the modern reader, but at the same time, there is a word I'm not going to publish, and I try to concisely and clearly and forcefully communicate why, and that is what I put in the front. And someone can read that, or they can skip through it. Again, here, this is a reason why we're here today, and that shows the kind of editing. Now that I'm translating the book from the paperback to an ebook, this is Kindle Create, this is the ebook software. So you can see this is a duplication of the quote that we saw here. And that's because Kindle Create has certain points where you can put these quotes. So that's a decision I've made. So since it's here, I could have it like this, but I like kind of using what they call the front matter over here. So I'm going to delete this because it's a duplication. So here is the book. Now, wait a minute. Let's go back. This is another example of I believe I had an image of a comet. I could put it here, but I'm not going to. Let's use, okay. So to kind of reset, I'm going to use the last copy of the PDF. Here we go. So this is the PDF that I was showing you in Amazon KDP. This is the output of Scribus. So you can see I have this House of Lundy collection, which is just a list of all the books I've published, and then a little comet image. This is in the beginning. So I'm referencing this again to make the Kindle ebook. I'm kind of making a new version of it. So I don't want this at the beginning. I'm going to put this at the end, so I don't need this image right now. So here's the same part where we're tracking. Okay, this will work. The Dark Water title page from 1920. That is something that I do want to add. I'm going to copy that note right here. So let's do back to Kindle Create. Right before here, I'm going to do part page. Chapter page. I'm gonna insert image. Then, so this is just, I like to do this sometimes, is find the original kind of title page or book cover. Again, this is the Comet, which was a chapter from a larger work called Dark Water, Voices from Within the Veil. So I put that there, and then when you put in an image in this Amazon Kindle Create, there's a thing called alt text. This is an accessibility thing for screen readers. So you know, I paste that thing under there. I can also paste it here, but like that. And then there's the question, do I want large? I think that looks pretty good. I'll go large with that, and then you go into the book. Now, you can see later when you preview this that, you know, the size of an image that you put in, you do got to have some considerations, because on different devices the image might come across different ways. So bigger isn't always better, but in this case I'm comfortable. I'm going to go with the large size. something I can do here is what's called chapter first paragraph, which I think looks kind of nice there, so I'm going to keep that. Alright, so around page 7, when it's talking about the boom, is when I have this first image. So now I scroll down, oh, there's a boom. Now, again, there's a little bit of creative decision making. Where do I insert the image? There's boom, then here I have what's called break 1, which is where I made a note to myself to insert this image. So let's see how it looks if I insert it here. Let me, to kind of share with you, and you can kind of see the process. Again, this is The Comet, a short story by W.E.B. Du Bois. So I encourage you to, obviously, read it yourself, the full story. I'm not going to read the whole book right now, but let's go right here and kind of see how this is going to flow. So let's just start. Boom! A low, grinding, reverberating crash struck upon his ear. He started up and looked about. All was black and still. He groped for his light and swung it about him. Then he knew. The great stone door had swung to. He forgot the gold and looked death squarely in the face. Then with a sigh, he went methodically to work. The cold sweat stood on his forehead, but he searched, pounded, pushed, and worked until after what seemed endless hours, his hand struck a cold bit of metal, and the great door swung open again, harshly on its hinges, and then, striking against something soft and heavy, stopped. He had just room to squeeze through. There lay the body of the vault clerk, cold and stiff. He stared at it, and then felt sick and nauseated. The air seemed unaccountably foul, with a strong, peculiar the air seemed unaccountably foul with a strong, peculiar odor. He stepped forward, clutched at the air, and fell fainting across the corpse. He awoke, so then break, insert image. He awoke with a sense of horror, leaped from the body, and groped up the stairs, calling to the guard. So, what's going on here? Again, I guess for a little bit of context, this is a guy that works in a bank. There's a comet passing by. Everyone's kind of excited about it. His employer sends him deep into the vault to do some work, and while he's in the vault, the comet passes by, and basically everyone dies. And then he wakes up and he's one of the lone survivors. So just to give you an idea of, so this image is Comet 03. So let's insert Comet 03 right here. Alright. Let's see. So I like that, and then for the alt text here, you want it to be straight to the point, clear. This isn't something that people are really going to be reading, so you know what I mean? Like it's only for certain instances where someone isn't able to okay, I was just trying to get rid of the there's a little yellow highlight. I think I got rid of it. So there's a couple different, I think that image looks clean, it looks nice. Another thing I can do is insert a separator. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to put in the image, keep going, and then look if I need to insert something like a separator later on. Okay, so let's go back here. This is the next image. Let's see if I have a little break inserted. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so the family's starting to wake up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a break. I might do some more recording like I've done in some of my other videos, where I'll continue doing a little bit of work, but I'm gonna have the audio off, and maybe I'll put on some music. The music I put on, generally, I've been playing some stuff from some of my other projects. I'll talk more about that at some other time. But again, this is a self-publishing book series showing the day-to-day work, and the idea of this series is you can kind of check in when you want, you can post questions below, you know, but this is the day-to-day work of book publishing, and you're kind of seeing it slowly come together. You know, when I started this series, I hadn't made it this far. Now I have a paper book that's ready to go for a proof copy. I'm working on the ebook. I'm going to spend some time today, this morning, working on the ebook. I hope to have that formatted by the end of the day, then another day of proofreading, and then maybe I'll send the ebook live while I'm publishing the paperback. There's another book I'm working on, In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway. I'm probably, if I have time today, I'm going to shift over and do a little bit more work on that to get that paper book, excuse me, to get that paperback almost ready to go. But anyway, trying to still get into my groove with filming, making progress, making some explanations, but at the same time making progress on the work. But this is something that I'm into doing. There's a couple other video channels I've watched that have done similar kind of watch me work that I've found, you know, interesting, fun to kind of just check in and listen and see what they're doing, and also learn about the process. So I hope to kind of share my process over time with these videos. But anyway, I'm going to cut over to some no voice video, put on some background tunes, and enjoy your day.
Everybody was drunk, the whole battle was drunk, going along the road in the dark. We were going to the Champagne. The lieutenant kept riding his horse out into the fields and saying to him, I'm drunk, I tell you, Mom, you know I'm so sized. Drunk on the road to Champagne we go, in the dark, the night shadows we go. We went along the road all night in the dark, and the adjutant kept riding up alongside my kitchen and saying, hey, you must put it out, it is dangerous, it will be absurd. We were 50 kilometers from front, but the adjutant worried about the fire in my kitchen. It was funny going along that road. That was when I was a kitchen corporal. That was when I was a kitchen corporal. In our time, in our time, in our time, in our time, there was the war.
The first matador got the horn through his soul, and as a crowd hooted him out. The second matador slipped and the bone caught him through the belly, and he hung on to the horn with one hand and held the other tight against the place. And the bull rammed him wham against the wall, and the horn came out, and he lay in the sand, and then got up like crazy drunk, and tried to slug the men, carrying him away in the air for his sword. But he fainted in the rain instead, and thunderous applause. The king came home, he had to kill 5 bulls, because you can't have more than 3 matadors. And the last bull, he was so tired, he couldn't get the sword in. He couldn't hardly lift his arm. He tried 5 times and the crowd was quiet, 'cause it was a good bull and it looked like him on a bull. And then he finally made it. He sat down in the sand and puked, and they held a cape over him, while the crowd hollered and threw things down into the bull ring. In our time, Toro, Toro, no. In the red stuck up in the rain, out of Adrianople across the mud flats. The carts were jammed for 30 miles along the Carrigacha Road. Water buffalo and cattle were hauling carts through the mud. No end and no beginning, just carts loaded with everything they own. The old men and women soaked through walked along, keeping the cattle moving. The Maritza was running yellow almost up to the bridge. Carts were jammed solid on the bridge, with camels bobbing along through them. Greek cavalry herded along the procession. Women and kids were in the carts, crouched with mattresses, mirrors, sewing machines,